Hello and welcome to the final tutorial of part 1 data preprocessing. I'm super excited to be almost done with it because I can tell you that what's coming next is going to be really exciting. We're going to build the brain, we're going to get into deep learning. Between us, deep learning is much more exciting than natural language processing, so that's why I'm super pumped to get to deep learning. But that will be in the next tutorial. In this one, we're gonna tackle the final step of our natural language processing phase, which is to sort the questions and the answers by the length of the questions. Be careful, we are sorting both the questions and the answers by the length of the questions. So, first of all, why do we want to do that? Well, I mentioned it in the previous tutorial, but I'll say a little more here. Basically, we want to sort the questions and the answers by the length of the questions because this will speed up the training. This will speed up the training and help to reduce the loss. And the reason for this is that because it will reduce the amount of padding during the training. So it's pretty technical, but it's important to know why we're doing this. Remember, I told you at the beginning of our adventure here, it's always important to know where you come from and where you want to go. And so right now, where we want to go, what we want to do, is to sort the questions and the answers by the length of the questions to speed up the training and optimize it. All right, so let's do this. Let's sort these questions and answers. So we will have to make some new lists because we cannot change the order in an existing list. This is not possible in Python. We have to make a new list. Or we could override the previous list, but it's dangerous to do that, so we'll make a new list. And we'll make actually two new lists. The first one, we're going to call it sorted clean questions. Sorry for the long names, but it's just for you to visualize clearly what we're making. Sorted clean questions that we're going to initialize as an empty list. And then same, we're going to make the sorted clean answers that we are initializing as well as an empty list. Sorted clean questions and sorted clean answers. Great. Now starts the for loop. And actually there are going to be two for loops. And again, I recommend to try to beat me and make these lists before me. That's an excellent practice. The more you code, the better you'll become. But I'll start right now. So for, and so now what we want to do? Well, we want to sort the questions and the answers by the length of the questions. So what we'll do is we will get a loop variable that is going to go from 1, which is the shortest length of a question or an answer, like for example, why or yes or no. You know, these are important questions or answers in a conversation. So we're going to have this loop variable that is going to start from 1 and then that is going to be incremented by 1 to be equal to 2, then 3, then 4. But then we will make it stop at a certain length because we don't want to include the questions that are too long, like for example, some big texts. This will not help the chatbot to learn how to speak. It's like if you're training a child to speak English or French, well, you will not teach him English with long sentences. You will start with some short sentences. Otherwise, the child will get overwhelmed. So the idea is going to be the same here. We just want to include the questions and the answers that are not too long. And by not too long, I mean a length, for example, up to 20 or 25. So we'll choose 25. If this is too long for you, you can always reduce it. If the training takes too long, you can always reduce it. So I'll go up to 25 here. We'll see what happens. Don't worry, if we don't get good results, we will always go back in our code to improve the chatbot in the end. So there we go. I'm taking my loop variable that I'm calling length, and that will go in the range from 1, the shortest length of a question, the shortest question, up to 25 plus 1. I'm adding the plus 1 here because remember that upper bounds in ranges in Python are excluded. So in order to go up to 25, we need to add 25 plus 1. But you know, this is arbitrary, so we could always go up to 24 and not include the plus 1 here. And actually, let's do this. It's proper. Feel free to do it if you want. All right, so then colon, and we're ready to go inside the for loop. And the next step is to start a second for loop. Because now that we loop over the different possible lengths of the questions we will be dealing with, well, now for each of these questions having that length we're dealing with right now, well, we want to get two important elements. The first element is the index of the question, and the second element is the question itself, the text, because then we will need the length of that question. So the trick to get these two elements at the same time is to use the enumerate function. And so that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to enumerate the questions into int list. So I'm going to show you what it means. The questions into int list is this one. Yes, this is this list. And by taking the enumerate function, what will happen is that the loop variable is going to get two elements. First is the index of the question in this questions into int list. And the second element is going to be this question itself translated into integers. And that's exactly what we'll want, because we need to keep track of the index to add it in our future sorted clean questions list and then sorted clean answers list. And also we need this because we need the length of it to sort the questions. We will get the length and see if it is equal to the length of the loop starting from 1 and then be equal to 2, 3, up to 25. So we need these two elements, and the trick to get these two elements, the index and the question, is to use the enumerate function. So there we go. Let's start the second for loop. For, then we can choose any name for the loop variable and we will call it I. It's the usual name when using enumerate. For I in enumerate, that's the function, and questions into int. And colon, and let's go inside. So, for example, the first I is going to be equal to the couple of 0 and this question. Then, at the next step of the loop, I is going to be equal to the couple of 1 and this question. Then, at the next step, the couple 2 and this question. So you see how this works? By using this, we get the index and the question itself. So that's perfect. You're going to understand very quickly why it's important for us to get these two elements. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check if the length of the question I'm dealing with right now in questions into int is equal to the length we're dealing with right now in the first for loop. Remember, this length starts as 1. So if the question that we're catching here in questions into int has a length of 1, well, we will include it first in the sorted clean questions. That's the idea of what we're doing here. And then when length will be equal to 2, we'll catch all the questions in questions into int that have a length equal to 2. And then etc. And that's how we manage to sort the questions and the answers by the lengths of the questions, because now in this for loop, we will just add first an if condition to check if the length of the question is equal to the length we're dealing with right now. And if that's the case, we will append this question to our sorted clean questions and our sorted clean answers. All right, so let's do this. Let's make this if condition. If the length of the question we're dealing with right now in this second for loop, and this we can get it by I bracket 1, because remember I is a couple and the first element of the couple is the index of the question and the second element of the couple is the question itself. So now we're checking if the length of the question itself is equal to the length of the first for loop we're dealing with right now, and that starts at 1. So if the length of the question is equal to this length, then what's going to happen is that we will have to append this question to the sorted clean questions list, because this length starts at 1, and therefore the length of the question is equal to 1, and therefore this is the shortest question. All right, so we take our sorted underscore clean underscore questions list, and to this list we append that question that has the length 1. All right, and how can we get this question? Well, we take our questions underscore into underscore int huge list, and then to catch this question, we need to catch it by taking the index of the question we're dealing with right now. And the index, we have it because this is the first element of I, because I remind, is a tuple containing the index of the question and then the question itself. So to get that index, we need to say here I0. And that gives us exactly what we want. All right? And remember that we also want to sort the answers by the length of the questions. And why is that? That's because we want to align the questions and the answers. We want to make sure that at a specific index, the answer of that index is the answer to the question of that same index. And therefore, that's why we have to choose something to sort the questions and answers by. And we're choosing to sort them by the length of the questions. And therefore, what we need to do now is directly to append the answer of that same index, I0 here, to our sorted clean answers list. And therefore, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, paste that here, replace sorted clean questions by sorted clean answers, and append, of course, answers into list of I0, because answers into list of I0 contains exactly the answer of index I0, which is the answer to the question of index I0 in the questions into int list. So that makes sure everything is well aligned here. So perfect. Oh my goodness, we are done with data preprocessing. This feels so good. I'm super happy to eventually get to part 2. But before we do that, let's have a look at the beauty of what we just made with these final 2 lists, sorted clean questions and sorted clean answers. So I'm going to execute this. I hope I didn't make any mistake. And let's execute. There we go. Fingers crossed, and amazing. Now I can tell you that the data preprocessing phase is done, and NLP is done actually, because now we're going to get to deep learning, which is much more exciting. So let's have a look at our sorted clean questions and our sorted clean answers, which are right here. So sorted clean questions first, and what we should see is, yes, exactly that. That is the first questions containing only one element. So this corresponds to the encoded number that results from the encoding thanks to our previous dictionary questions word to int. So these corresponds to one word questions. And if we scroll down, well, we should get to questions with more elements. So we should get from questions with one element to questions with 2 elements in any second. Well, there are actually a lot of questions with 1 element. I wonder what these kinds of questions are. But soon enough, we should get to questions with 2 elements. There we go. They are right here. So that's the questions with 2 words, like, I don't know, like, what's up? No, what's up would be what is up. So that would be a 3 words question. But that can be, for example, how come? Or you okay? I don't know. Well, you know, these are questions from movies, so this can be anything. And then soon enough, we should be able to get to 3 words question. So let's see. There we go. 3 words question. So here, what's up is a 3-word question. I'm sure there is a what's up somewhere. Anyway, this is exactly what we wanted. So that's perfect. I'm going to close this. All right, so now we can move on to part 2, building the sec-to-sec model. And if you're still there with me, I want to congratulate you very much for staying with me along this huge data preprocessing phase. I hope this wasn't too overwhelming, but this is compulsory in deep natural language processing. And on a more general note, keep in mind that the work of a data scientist or a machine learning scientist is 70% on data preprocessing. But I try to make it as efficient as possible, and now things are going to get exciting. We're going to get into TensorFlow. We're going to start using TensorFlow, and we're going to create the encoding layer and then the decoding layer in the sec-to-sec model. I can't wait to start, and until then, enjoy DeepNLP.